everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wife for Life with none other than your marriage specialist, Michelle McElroy. And today, my special guest is Monica Wilson. Yay! Hey, Monica.
Hello, Michelle.
Hey, so I love you. I know you well, but my viewers and my
Yes.
listeners don't know you. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am married to Michael Wilson. Michael played for the Cleveland Browns for about 2.5 years. This is prior to us meeting. We've been married for July 1st this year, would be 30 years. And in that marriage, we have two beautiful children, Marcellus and Mariah. Um, and that's pretty much it.
Wait a minute. Y'all been married 30 years?
July 1st will be 30 years.
Oh my
30 years. And
goodness.
it does not,
Woo!
and a good thing about that is it doesn't feel like 30 years. So
Oh, I
that's a
love
good thing.
that.
Yeah.
That is so dope. 30.
Yeah.
Woo, we want to be like y'all when we grow up.
Yes. Black love.
Girl,
And
yeah.
yes, and a little bit about myself. Currently I work for an organization called Alight Solutions. I work in HR. I've been in HR probably within the last 15 years, and so far so good. I enjoy it.
I love that. I love that. So, 30 years. Tell me, how did you guys meet? You said it was after he played football. How
It
many
was
years?
right after.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like right after when Michael was in college, even though he played in the NFL, and of course, that was back in the 90s. He did his degrees in hotel restaurant management. So he was going back and forth, on the off season working in the hotel. So
Mhm.
once he finished, he just continued on in that area of working in hotels. And we met in a club. Well, if you're from Chicago, you would know you will know or recognize the name. They are no longer open. We met at the Cotton Club. I was
Ooh.
with my sister and a friend, and he asked me to dance, and I said no. But the only reason why I said no is because I don't know, for some reason, for that night I danced all night, and once when he asked, I was tired, so I said no. So apparently he was not going to give up. So he asked me to dance again, and the rest is history.
So you said yes the second time?
The second time I did. I did say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so
Yes.
what? After the dance, did stars come out and y'all like,
No, you know what? After we were on the phone, and I was like, okay, I don't know about this dude because he's a little bit too arrogant for me. But after our first date, I told my sister that's the man I'm going to marry. So I knew after our first date. Yes.
what? What was it about
Yes.
him that made you
You
say that he's
know
the one?
what? You know what? I can't even like put my finger like on one thing. Of course, when you're dating, everyone is on their best behavior. So he was a gentleman and everything like that. But I don't know if I just felt that in my spirit that
Mhm.
that was the man that I was going to marry. So it wasn't like one thing. I don't know. I just had the feeling that he was the one. He was my person, as they say now.
But come
Yeah.
on, you got to give us something. Like, there are some women out here that are wanting to know, how can they tell that this guy is the guy or this guy is
you
not the guy?
I don't know that I could say, oh, it's A, B, and C or D,
Mhm.
E, and F. I just feel like you got to feel it in your spirit, I think, almost. Because, like I said, it wasn't one thing. I mean, like I said, we're all on our best behavior on the first date. So they're going to, I'm assuming they're still doing this because, of course, that was back in the 90s.
Mhm.
So, opening the door for you, picking the restaurant, things like that, just making sure that everything was perfect. And just being like, the conversation was great. I just feel like everything about the date was just great, and just I like I said, I just feel like I felt it in my spirit that he
Mm,
was the one. So I don't know if I could say, oh, if he says this or does that, that
uh-huh.
you'll know that he's the one.
Okay, I love it because what I'm hearing you say is you was prayed up, you were spiritually connected, so you were ready
Mm-hmm.
for a download from God to say, "This is your guy."
Right. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. One of
Yeah.
my favorite stories is Russell Wilson and Sierra because she prayed
Yes.
him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to hear when they share that story and how she got what she prayed for, you know.
Right.
So, and she was
Exactly.
willing to walk away from what wasn't working to allow God to show her what was working or what
And
could
I
work.
think, yeah, we have to do that not only in relationships, but other areas in our lives as well.
Yeah, I love that. So, you guys, 30 years, I have to think that you guys have been through some stuff in 30 years. You know, Ray
Yes.
and I, we are 29, we'll be 30 in January. So we're right behind y'all. We on your
Yeah,
heels.
yeah. Oh, girl, yes.
But you know, one of the things that people complain about with social media is that people always only show the good stuff and the good times, the
Yep.
vacations and
Mm-hmm.
the dates and all that stuff, but they don't show the real and the challenging times. Yeah, and we've talked because we're in a book club together. Yes,
Right.
this
Mm-hmm.
book club, y'all, that is fantastic that I thoroughly enjoy. It's what we used to be the phenomenal nine, but now it's 10 of us, right?
Yeah, so I think we're just going to keep the name Phenomenal and that's it.
We, we just
Phenomenal
phenomenal.
women. Because we
Yeah.
may add more and we won't stay with the number. Yes.
Okay. I love
Mm-hmm.
that because I like being phenomenal. Just saying.
You are.
And so are you.
You are. Thank you.
So in the thoughts and considerations of a 29-year marriage, not
Mm-hmm.
including dating time and things like that, what would you say is a great challenge that you guys have overcome, to the people that are listening and viewing, that is relatable?
I would say, I know now majority of us all have two working, parents working in the household or whatever. But when we first got married, well, not exactly when we first got married. My son was 3 years old. Our son was 3 years old, and we moved to Atlanta. And at that time, I didn't work. And so he was the only one working outside of the home. So I was at home, of course, with my son. And then 2 years later, I had my daughter. So they're 5 years apart. So I'm at home with a 5-year-old and a newborn. So
Mhm.
I think I was thinking about this question, and I think that's one of the hardest part of, you kind of lose yourself. You lose
Mm,
yourself in being a wife. You lose yourself in being a mother. And it's because you're so consumed, especially having little ones. You're really focused on them, and then you're focused on them all day. Then when your husband come home, you're focused on him. And then in our situation, again, Michael worked in the hotel. So he was working 12, 14, 16-hour days. So I'm
ooh,
at home with the little ones all day. And,
mm,
I'm in bed. The kids may go days without seeing him and things like that. So it's like I felt like I lost my identity. Like, really, who am I besides a mother and a wife? So I
mm.
think that's one of the biggest challenges, especially, and I think it was even harder because we lived in Atlanta and we didn't have any family. So it was just
Oh,
us and the kids. And, it's hard to meet people when you have little ones. Your husband is working all the time. Like, really, when do you have time for not only one another, but to spend time with others and things like that? So I think that was probably one of the hardest times in being married, being a mother, is not having an identity outside of that.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I felt that way too. I had a close friend who I remember she would come and tell me, I am on the way. I don't care what you have
Mm-hmm.
to do, but you are getting out of that house. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
appreciative for her for doing that, because you
Yeah.
do get consumed when your children are really small. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing what you're saying, totally feeling that. How did you
Mm-hmm.
your identity back? What happened?
You know what? And I was like, it took a long time. It wasn't like, oh, when my kids got, when Marcellus was 10 and Mariah was 5 or something like that. And it happened with a job that I had. I was working for an organization. I got promoted a couple of times. My last promotion, I traveled all the time. And so that was something new that, okay, I have to make all my plans of travel by myself, go to cities and or city and states that I've never been in, and I had to maneuver through those cities and things like that. I
Mm.
think that's when the turning point came, like, okay, I am responsible for all this and not responsible for little ones anymore or taking care of my husband. I'm being seen. And I feel like that's when I changed and I wasn't so focused on being a mother, being a wife. It's like, okay, I'm doing all these things with an organization that I love working for, that I
Yeah,
felt like that's when my identity came back. Like, okay, Monica, you're back. You you're just not a mother, you're just not a wife. So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that was when it all changed. And of course, once we moved back to Chicago, being around family and things like that, that made a huge difference as well. And I don't know, um, was it not having any family around? That was a very hard part as well, because I think you sometimes can have an outlet with family, but when you have no outlet, so we're nowhere, you're not working. So it's very difficult. So I think moving back home and getting that position really um, changed that, with not knowing who I am.
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I do also feel like it's a season of life thing too.
Yes. Mhm. Mhm.
I was blessed to be able to be at home with my children for most of their younger years, uh,
Mhm.
through for some of them pretty much through high school. But I felt like after a certain period of time, maybe once they were all like the older three were in middle school, that's when I start feeling like oh, you know what it was? I think it was because they started having friends and they wanted to
Mhm.
spend more time with their friend groups, and that
Yep.
meant less time with me and in the home. And I started realizing, hey, what happened to my friend groups?
Right.
you
Mhm.
know
Yep.
and
Very
what
true.
now, what do I do with this free time that I have?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I believe those were formidable years for me to begin to identify what my next season of life would look like as the children were getting older and soon
Yes.
be off to college or working and,
Mhm.
doing their own thing. And so, yeah, yeah. And I just want to encourage some of the women that are at home, because it's nothing wrong with being at home. If you can be
No.
a wife
Mm-mm. Not at all.
or mother, do that, if you want to.
Mhm.
But I don't think
Right.
it's wrong either way. It's your choice. It's a personal
Right.
choice. But I
Mhm.
would say that it's so important that we remain connected to who we are and who God created us,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
right?
Just because you're married, have kids, or whatever scenario that you in, it's like, don't lose yourself in that,
Yeah.
because
And
it's kind of hard to get back.
it really is.
It
It's an
is.
adjustment, especially if you
Mhm.
wait too long. It is an
Yes.
adjustment. And I'm just
Yeah.
curious if this happened for you. I found myself so consumed with Ray and with the children that
Mhm.
I began to hyper focus on them to the point that it became unhealthy. Like I
Right.
could see all their flaws and everything magnified, and so focused on them, that
Mhm.
it in some ways hindered our relationship, and
Yeah.
also hindered my own personal development and growth because I was so focused on them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was
So
wrong
then,
because of
mm-hmm.
them and not because of me.
Right.
So did you have that experience as well?
I was thinking about that because, like you said, we've been married for 30 years, so we done seen some things. And that's, I would say I was like that too. Well, why isn't he doing that? Well, he should be doing this. And then and the Lord spoke to me. It's like, you have to make sure you're right, because I feel like once you're right and he sees what you're doing, I'm not going to say every man is going to change or he's going to turn out to be perfect or whatever. But I do believe that once you start just doing the things that you're supposed to do, you focus on yourself, not in an unhealthy way, but to
Yeah.
focus on the things as a mother, as a wife, the things that you need to do and
Yeah.
pray, the Lord will change his heart and he will change as well. Because I will tell you, my husband has changed a lot. And of course, for the best. So,
Oh.
yeah, I do think you have to look at yourself first.
Hmm.
Okay, and see, okay, what am I doing? Because I don't think you can always focus on, like you said, the flaws of your husband, the flaws of your kids. Sometimes you have to look at yourself, which is not easy because, of
Hmm.
course, we think we're perfect, we're doing everything right. It's them; they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But I feel like once I started doing that I saw a change in him as well.
Amen. And even the kids. I feel like and that's something I wish I would have learned younger, you know. I feel like
Yeah.
I really
Mm-hmm.
evolved into that over the years. Um,
Yes.
and I feel like it causes a lot of stress and strain in those relationships with them, but also your relationship with yourself, because each, just like you, when you're dating, you're spending quality time with each other,
Mm-hmm.
getting to know
Mm-hmm.
each other, developing the relationship. I feel like we don't do that enough with ourselves, especially as women,
Yes.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
to and like you said, not in a selfish way. This is not
Right.
becoming self-centered, but it's more about
Mm-hmm.
becoming in tune with yourself and focusing on those characteristics that you would like to have as a woman, as a wife, as
Mm-hmm.
a mother,
Mm-hmm.
an employee or an employer. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that. So tell me, so one of the things that we talked about and shared, that I feel like was huge, 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 is
Mm-hmm.
that you had a health scare,
Yes.
and it was beyond a scare, it became a reality, correct?
Correct.
Do you mind
Mm-hmm.
sharing your story with us?
Well, so women, before disclaimer,
Hmm.
girl, check your breast. I'm telling you, we all know our bodies, so just check your breast because I did not go to the doctor. I mean, I'm saying I went to the doctor, but the doctor did not find my lump. I found my lump. I was in the shower,
Mm,
showering, and I'm like, okay, that's different. And that's the other thing, you should know your body.
yeah.
And so, of course, went to the doctor, testing, and I was stage 2 breast cancer.
Mm,
Thank God. Went through the whole emotion of why me, Lord? Why do I have to go through this?
mhm.
And just being a believer, I think that was the biggest thing to get me through all of this, because the Lord was like, why not you?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Lord, well, and but I always, once he revealed that to me, I said, okay, what is the Lord trying to teach me in this season
Mm,
of going through this? But one thing I will say, not saying that my husband and I was in a bad space or anything like that. I mean, I just have to give all praise to God, because my husband stepped up to the plate. I pretty much I didn't do anything. I mean, not
mm,
that I should have, but I think I was telling someone that, and they was like, "Well, that's your husband." I go, "But I know people have been in the same situation that I'm in, and they didn't experience what I experienced with my husband.
Yeah.
So he took care of everything. I had no worries, no stress, no nothing. Even though it is taxing on your body,
Hmm.
I did go through chemo and radiation.
Okay.
These are after effects. You It's a lot of things that you don't experience when you're going through, but
Mm.
after that, it could even be years later, and it has been years later, 3 years later. So I'm still, my body is still, different things are happening. I won't go into all of that, but even though going through that, and even some of the other challenges that I'm just going through my body, um I would do it all over again just to be here. But
Mm.
ultimately, I know it was the Lord who got me through chemo, sitting in a room. And basically, chemo, we all know, is just like a poison put in your body to kill the cancer.
Yeah.
And sitting in a room, and it was during COVID. So, prior
Oh,
to
wow.
that, if you would have chemo, your family members can come into the room with you, but
Hmm.
they couldn't come into the room. Where I was upstairs in the hospital, so they couldn't even come upstairs, because of course there's other patients there and things like that. So that part of it was pretty lonely,
Yeah.
not being able to have someone to sit with you, because you're there for an hour or maybe longer.
Hmm.
Um just the taxing on your body. But I mean, even with all that, I just give all praises to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because your emotions are all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, and again, like I said, you're like, why me, Lord? Why do I have to go through this? But I mean, I just give the Lord all praises, and just thank my husband for being there, for being my support system,
Hmm.
for making sure that I was okay, whether I was getting sick or anything like that. And I just thank him for that. But I
Hmm.
will say, Michael works for American Veterinary Medical Association. No, he
Hmm.
is not a veterinarian. Like I said, his background is in hotel restaurant management, because most people ask me that when I tell them where he works.
Hmm.
There were some other ladies there that experienced breast cancer as well. So they provided him with this book, and it was from a standpoint of a husband understanding what your wife is going through, and just the different changes of her body, how she feels and things like that. So I think
Hmm.
that helped him a lot as well,
Do you?
to kind of understand.
Yeah.
Go
Do
ahead.
you remember the name of the book?
I don't remember the name of the book. I know he still has it. I
Mm.
can get it to you and you can share it with your audience, but I do believe that really helped him. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, you said he did everything, right? What does doing everything look like from your experience?
Um, Everything you can do in the household, keeping the house clean, cooking, taking me to all of my doctor's appointments, taking me to chemo, picking me up. Now, and then remember, my husband, well, this, travels all the time.
Mhm.
So he arranged his schedule, because I think it was like 2 different days that I would go on, but he would make sure that he was not traveling on those days, and that he
Mhm.
was at home so he can tell me. Now, I will say we have adult kids. So my son, he could have taken me or whatever, but no, he would, around his schedule. So that's what I'm saying. Things like that. Like, he didn't have to do that. Like, okay, we have adult kids. They have cars. They can drive you or whatever. But he made sure that he was there. Like I said, taking me to doctor's appointment, making sure the house is okay, making sure the kids are okay, even though they're older. Our daughter was away at college at the time, just making
Mhm.
sure she was okay. Hey, don't worry about mom. You and me and I can't talk. My husband and my son would make sure that I wanted for nothing. So you go to school, take care of what you need to do.
Yeah.
So making sure that everyone have an opinion, like we were talking earlier. So
Mhm.
people calling him saying, oh, well, well, I know such and such, they, when they went through breast cancer, they did that. Making sure that all that noise, didn't, come to me, or I didn't have to deal with that. And just making sure that the only thing I was focused on was getting healthy. That's
Yeah.
it. He made sure that he took care of everything else.
I love that. What the picture I get is he covered you. He was like a
Yes.
covering
Yes.
for
Yes.
you
That's a
during
good
that.
word. Yes. Mhm.
Did you
Yeah.
did you have to ask for any of those things?
No. No. Not one time. No.
Yeah.
I can even remember because again I went through chemo, so they put a port in, and so that's surgery because they're actually putting a object in your body.
Mhm.
So he had to work that day, but like I said, just his schedule was everything around whatever I had to do. And I just remember that day I was so out of it. And he brought all the food. He was like, "Okay, I got to run back to the office." He had a meeting, but he made sure even like my food was sitting on my nightstand, so when you wake up everything is good or whatever. So it's not one time that I ever had to ask, "Well, hey Michael, I need you to do X, Y, and Z." It was never that case. It was just, you get better and I would take care of everything.
Yeah, I love that. Talk about a hero.
Yes.
That is so awesome. But
Yes.
also I want to encourage women whose husband may not get a book of instruction
Right.
or may not
Mm-hmm.
know what our needs are, that if we just communicate those things versus expecting our husbands to know
Yes.
how to
Mm-hmm.
treat us, how to
Yeah.
handle us, how to cover us,
Mm-hmm.
if we just
Right.
share those expectations and make those requests, we might be pleasantly surprised at what we get in
Mm-hmm.
return. I
And
find,
and to your I was just going to say, and to your point of just telling them what we want, I think we should just do that generally because
Mhm,
they're not mind readers.
that's
So,
right.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They are not mind readers. And oftentimes they want to please us or give
Mm-hmm.
us what we want and need. But we have to be okay with being flexible and teaching them.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to teach people how to
Mm-hmm.
treat us, including our spouses. And that's not bad.
Yes.
That is not
It's
bad at all
not.
because we're different.
Mm-mm.
So why not? And
Right.
I don't know
It's
about
true.
you, girl, but if I got somebody who's like, I want to serve you, I want to please you, I want to feel your needs and your wants, I'm like, give me that person. Yes,
Right.
okay, let's
Exactly.
go. Here's
Yeah.
my list.
I'm
Look,
all
roll
for
out the
it.
scroll.
Yes. I am 100% agree with you. Definitely.
Yes, I know, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about 33 years together, 29 years married for me,
Mm-hmm.
there are a plethora of things that I think to myself, I wish I would have done that differently. What
Mm-hmm.
about you, when you think about your long-term marriage, what is one thing that you absolutely wish you would have done differently?
Hmm. Earlier is that, don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. Because I think sometimes when we lose ourselves, it's not it's not like your husband's fault, it's not your kid's fault. And I don't want to put blame, but it's kind of like, I think sometimes, I mean, for me, I feel like, okay, it was my fault because I allowed it to happen. you know it's
Mhm.
like, I feel like sometimes too, when you're young, you get married and you're so in the fantasy world,
Mhm,
kind of
mhm.
sort of, that you lose yourself because you're like focused on everyone else except yourself. And when
Yeah.
you're just married and it's just you and your husband, you're just so focused on him. So I think that's where it started. And then when you have kids, then you're focused on them. And I think as women, that's what we do, because we are, I can't think of the word right now,
Caregivers.
but yes, we're caregivers. I feel almost too like we want everyone to be okay.
Mhm.
Okay, I got
Nurturers.
to make sure, nurturers, that's the word. I want to make sure my husband is okay. He has everything okay. I got to make sure my kids are okay. And that's what you're focusing on. And
Mhm,
so then you lose yourself because you're not even thinking about yourself. So I
mhm,
think that's one of the biggest things. And then the other thing I will say is that getting married and being young, for me anyway, and I actually spoke to a couple of other ladies that I know that got married around the same time. We did like 25, 26.
Mhm.
It's like you always just want to keep the peace. Just keep
Ooh,
the peace in the marriage. Um,
ooh.
whatever he says, okay, even though you're thinking that's not necessarily what I want to do. I want to say something else, but you know what? I'm just going to keep the peace. I'm not going to say anything. And I think for me, that was the
Mhm.
biggest mistake, because I think that ties into losing myself. You
Ooh.
know,
Yep.
not speaking up for myself, just making sure everyone else is good, and whatever, I'll think about myself later. So I think for me, in my marriage, those were the two things that I would definitely change looking
Ooh,
back.
girl, that
Yeah.
last one was strong. That last one was so strong. And the reason why I say
Yeah.
that, yes, it's definitely tied to losing yourself. It's also
Mhm.
tied to your spouse not really getting to know the authentic person you are, who you really
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
at your core,
Yeah.
because you're just going along. You're like, oh, I'm so happy.
Mhm.
I'm so
Right.
appreciative that, that's no big thing or whatever. I'll let that
Mhm.
slide. But, and it's not being argumentative, but I like to term it as,
Right.
oh, girl, being a peacekeeper is very different than being a peacemaker.
Yes.
Say it
Yes.
again.
Yes.
Being a
Mhm.
peacekeeper is very different than being a peacemaker. I worked with
Mhm.
a client, a couple, one time, and the wife was, in fact, a peacekeeper because her husband was better suited to debate his side or his perspective. And so
Mhm.
she felt defeated before the conversation ever
Yes.
began. And so she would just let things go, but inside it was eating her up, and it was causing,
Mhm.
detriment to their relationship. And
Yes.
oftentimes we think being a peacekeeper is true peace, but that's false peace.
It is.
Making peace, being a peacemaker is true peace. And it comes with some challenging conversations, or
Mhm.
as we put it, courageous conversations.
Yes.
But they're
Mhm.
important. And we think of conflict all the time as a bad thing, but conflict is good because it gives you insight into the history of your spouse.
Yes.
And once
Yes.
you know the
Mhm.
history of your spouse, now you can understand them better, you could relate to them,
Mhm.
and now you could fully accept them for who they are, and they feel that.
Right.
They feel that, and they
Yes.
do that.
Mhm.
So I want to
Yes.
encourage everyone to be a peacemaker, not a
Make it.
peacekeeper.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
So,
I
ooh,
think also too, that comes with maturity, because it's not easy.
yeah.
It's not. First, I think the first part, you have to recognize it,
Yeah.
because if you never recognize it, then you're constantly going to be a peacekeeper. So first,
Mhm.
you have to recognize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I love that too because everything is just like, if I was an alcoholic, the first step is to admit that that's what I am or
Mm,
that's what I'm doing, and
right.
then recognize how it's impacting your life. Because you know what I found? The negative part about being unconscious is by the time you have consciousness, it's
Mhm.
typically an issue. It typically has snowballed
Yes.
into something
Mhm.
huge, and now you're
Right.
mad, and that can impact
Mhm.
the way you communicate with each other. So
Yeah.
we do have to create this level of consciousness in the way we think, the way we feel, the way we speak, the way we
Mhm.
grow, the way we react, the way we respond,
Yes.
all those
Mhm.
things. Girl, and maturity is the best teacher, which really
Yes.
is in time. Time is the best.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So let me see. Let me see. Okay. So what? Tell me, because 29 years, 30 years is a long time. What
Yes.
advice would you give to a young couple that are married? And I know some of this may feel overlapping, but when
Mm-hmm.
you think about going into marriage, what's something that you wish someone would have told you outside of, not losing yourself and being a peacemaker?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this would have changed anything, but I think to talk about it because someone is had maybe have been married long, of course, longer than me or whatever. But I would say marriage counseling. I
Mm,
definitely would say that, and I, I'll just tell you, we did it, but it was like for a day. So it was just kind of like our pastor. He was my pastor.
mm,
Just kind of told us like the wife what the wife does with the husband. Okay, marriage is so much deeper than that. So
yeah,
I would say that find someone who is really going to go deep.
yeah,
Someone who I mean possibly I don't know, but definitely find someone who has been married and hopefully married for just one time. Please don't take it the wrong way. But
yeah,
marriage is hard. I mean, I love being married. I feel everyone should get married or whatever. But in reality, marriage is hard because you think about you're bringing two imperfect people together, two people with different backgrounds, and you're bringing that and you're becoming one. So
yeah.
I definitely feel like marriage counseling, and I would even go as extreme. I don't know if this is extreme, at least for 6 months, because I
Mm,
feel like that's when you really get to know, like I said earlier, like I knew that was my person. I don't know if everyone will feel that,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I feel like there's because and there's things that you never think about,
Mhm.
like, okay, what do you feel about having kids? We can assume that our husband want kids, or the husband can assume that the wife want kids. Well, how many kids do we want? How are we going to raise our kids? How are we going to live? What boundaries are we going to put on our in-laws? I mean, all those things that, I
Yes.
mean, it's just so, and of course I understand when you're in counseling, you're not going to be able to discuss every single thing that may happen in a marriage, but I feel like it'll open doors for things that you may never even thought about that you may have to deal with in a marriage. Because of course I feel like when, whether young, old, or whatever, we're just like in that a honeymoon stage, and we
Mhm.
just think he's perfect, we think she's perfect, and I just love him, and we're just going to hold hands and run through the field and be happy forever. And no, that's not going to happen. You're going to have some heart wrenching, things that you're going to go through, and you got to be able to get through them together. And I don't feel like divorce is always the answer. I mean, of course, if there's some extreme situations, I get it, but we
Right.
have to be strong. It's like, do we really want this marriage to work? I mean, marriage is work, because
Yeah.
if you don't work at it, that is going to be your first response. Okay, let's just get divorced and we're just going to it's going to be over. And that's no, that's not, I mean, that's an easy way out, but marriage is work. But yeah, marriage
Yeah.
counseling, you got to get it before you get married. And I even feel like throughout your marriage,
Yes.
because things come up and you still may need it, and you got to have that outside party to look to say, okay, you guys need to look at it from this way or that way or whatever. But definitely counseling.
Yeah. And I love that answer as the marriage coach. You knew I love that answer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is the
Yes.
thing. This is the analogy that I always give people. When you buy a car, you how
Mm.
I don't know about you. How long do you keep your cars?
Don't use us as an example, because my husband is a car guy and he gets a new car every 3 years as long as I've known him.
I
So,
love
and
it.
we've been together 33 years. So it's just like, do not use him as an example because
I love it
he's
though.
ridiculous.
Hey,
He's
if you
ridiculous.
can, do.
Yeah.
You know, but
But I will say his
mm,
research is for like 2 or 3 months before he goes and does anything. So I will
okay.
say that, but don't use
So
him as an example.
he's not impulsive. I get it.
No, he is not. No. Mm-mm.
That's awesome. Hey, if you can, do it. But this is the thing, most people, when they get a car, they expect it to last for some years. I would even
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
if it could last for 10 years, we would want it to last for 10 years.
Yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
in order for a car to last for 10 years, there's some things that we have to do to keep the car running smoothly, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to get some gas regularly. We have to get
Mm-hmm.
oil change every what, 2 months, 2,000 miles, depending on the age of the car, 3 months, 3,000 miles. You have to
Right.
get your annual tune-ups, you get your car washes, however frequently. Some people go every week, some people go once a month. You
Mm-hmm.
get, if something breaks down on the car, you take it to go get repaired. These are routine things that we do to ensure that our car will last
Mm-hmm.
years. And for the life of me, I don't understand why we don't do that same model with our marriages. There are
Yes.
different things that we could do, like you suggested. There's marriage counseling that we could do at any point and given time. We can also do it if our marriage needs to be repaired in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to the
Or
shop.
if the marriage is going good.
Yes, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, that if
Mm-hmm.
your marriage is going good, maybe you get an annual tune-up, and
Mm-hmm.
you go to a marriage conference and you get
Yes.
to learn all these new things, or maybe you get a book, and every week or every month you're reading about how to improve your marriage or how to sustain it. These are
Mm-hmm.
all things. Or you get a marriage coach. I liken myself in between you being in a perfect marriage and you needing a counselor. If you're just in the middle, that's maintenance. Sometimes you
Yes.
might just come to an impasse. You need a third party's opinion. Here I am. I'm here for you. But the thing is that we have all these resources available to maintain our marriages, but we think they're supposed to be successful just by happenstance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
Come on,
true.
we got to do better. And
It,
I want to encourage everybody, like you said, it doesn't have to be something wrong for you to
mm-hmm.
go and do things and seek people to help you maintain your marriage. Because I don't want an average marriage. I want an
Right.
exceptional marriage.
Mm.
I want
Yes.
a
Yes.
spectacular marriage. And I ain't talking
Mm-hmm.
about Instagram spectacular either.
No. No.
I'm talking about
No.
for real spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
want the real deal. So I love that, and I
One
ditto that.
thing, can I just add one thing? One thing
Yes,
I would say too, like, I feel like in my marriage, the biggest thing, and I tell people, Michael and I, we are friends and we have a good time with one another. I know like some of our friends, they like to go on couple trips. I was like, no, it could just be me and my husband. We have a good time with one another and stuff like that. But I
yeah,
do believe in a marriage, you should be friends. It just shouldn't
mhm,
be, oh, well, he's my husband or he's my wife. I mean, do you guys just sit around, talk, laugh, crack jokes, things like that? I mean, we have a good time together, but I do believe one of the biggest pluses of in a marriage is that you guys should definitely be friends.
yeah,
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Foundation, be friends. That's great advice.
Yes.
I love that. Tell me, what is something that Michael gets right that you absolutely love?
Girl, I don't have to do nothing. No, when it comes to the house, like I don't really know. Not that I don't know. I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm,
This is gonna sound silly, but you know how like not the gutters, but like inside your house, because you turn your heat on. Well, hey, we're in Chicago, so we turn our heat on. And
mhm.
even with the air conditioner, and all of that dust and everything get in
And
your
the vent.
vents and things like that.
Uh-huh.
he get all that maintenance, and I'm just like, you know what? I didn't even think about that because I don't like him to schedule anything, not unless he's at home because he goes into the office a couple of days a week. So I would
Mhm.
say, okay, make sure you scheduling all this stuff. But any maintenance to the house, or if I say, hey, I want to change this or anything like that, I mean, he pretty much always go through with it because we just changed the color in our family room. So we had discussed it for a little bit or whatever. And then some other changes that we made. And I was like, oh, and I want this and I want that. Of course, as long as it's in the budget, because he always going to ask, how much is this going to cost? That's always his first question. But I will say, I feel like that's a heavy load off.
Yeah.
And anything with my car. I mean, and the reason why I'm saying these things is because I know other couples that, oh no, I don't take my car to get my oil change. No, or they take their car. No, my husband doesn't do that. And I'm like, I'll just come in the house and I'm like, oh honey, I heard this weird noise or something like that. And he'll be like, oh, okay, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll find out what's going on or whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
that may be something small, but for me, that's good. All I
Mhm.
need to do is, I don't wash my car. That's not, I always tell my husband, that is not my ministry. That is not my job. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember or whatever. But only thing I do is put gas in my car. That's it. I love that. I think that's awesome. I don't have to worry about anything breaks in the house. He's going to take care of it. I don't have to, oh, I have to call or I have to do this or I have to make none of that. So for me, that's what I love. That those things I don't even have to worry about. Now, it's not that I don't know what's going on in my house. I'm saying I don't have to literally do any of those things. I know he's going to take care of it and I'm good.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome. It sounds to me like you feel well taken care of.
Yes. Yes. Most definitely. Most
I love
definitely.
that. So when you hear
Yes.
other people's experiences, do you go home and give them a kiss like, "Oh, baby, I
I do.
appreciate
I'm like, honey, ooh, let me tell you. And then when I tell him, he was like, and you're telling me a story because why? Why? Why are you telling me this story?
because I
I'm just like,
appreciate
I just want to let
you."
you know. Now, that is something that I do all the time. I do tell my husband how much I appreciate him.
Mhm.
Because in the word it says, wives respect your husbands and husbands
Mhm.
love your wives. So that is one of the biggest things. My husband, like his pet peeve is respect. So
Yeah.
that is something I mean, yes, of course, I love my husband, but I mean, I respect him, and I definitely tell him all the time how much I appreciate him. Not only for, I mean, of course, the first things we think about is materialistic things, but just the fact that he is a man. He's a man's man. He's in his right position, that he
Mhm.
is taking care of. He's the head of the household. He's taking care of everything, and those are things that I don't have to worry about.
I
So,
love it.
because I think that's one of the biggest things. Just speaking to majority of people, I know women that I know they are married, but I do know some single women, but making sure that men take their rightful place in the house.
Yeah, and that we
So,
allow them to.
and I allow him to. I have no problem doing it at all. At all. And again, I think that's another growth. That's maturity and things
Yeah.
like that in your marriage. I mean, of course, I can't say that that happened when we first got married. That would be dishonest, but it's a journey and it's grow. And I feel like sometimes when you're young or maybe not even young, you come into a marriage thinking all those things are going to happen, and maybe sometimes they will, but if they don't, it's okay. It's a
Mhm.
journey.
That's right. That's right.
Hmm.
It's not a genie, it's a journey.
Right. Hmm.
I love it.
Hmm.
Okay, last question. The
Okay.
title of the podcast is Wife for Life. When you think of that term, how would you describe a wife for life, or how are you as a wife for life?
Ooh, I can speak for myself. I am, well, my son calls me a helicopter mom because I'm always worried about everyone. And my daughter says I'm too nice because I'm always there for everyone or whatever. But I would say a life for wife is growth, making sure that you stay in touch with your own. that you don't get lost in being a wife, because I think resentment comes behind that. And honoring your husband, making sure, just like, most women, and probably I shouldn't even be listening to this, but on the internet, oh, I want a man with six figures, I want him to have his own, driving a Mercedes. I want him to have his own home. And those things may come in time, but in all of that, I think the biggest thing, like I said, being a wife, you need to respect your husband, not only in the house, but outside of the house in front of other people. I think that's a big one. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you will say, I love my husband and all of that. Even if he is not doing all the things that you think that he should be doing, I still think the biggest thing is respecting your husband.
Mm.
And I feel like when you show that respect and appreciation, your husband, he'll do anything for you. He really will. So,
All
and
right.
I see that in some marriages, that women, they are so disrespectful to their husbands.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that you just let your husband do anything, say anything, treat you any kind of way. I'm not saying that. But when you're in a good marriage, and he may not have that six figures, he may not, drive that Mercedes or whatever car or whatever you're thinking that he should have, I think the most important thing is how he treats you.
Mm.
And if he treats you well, then I think that you allow him to be the head of the household. You respect him, you love him, and you show your appreciation.
Yes. I love that. And encourage him,
Yes,
etc.
yes,
etc.
yeah. I think that's a big one, and I'm glad you brought that up, because my husband has gone through a lot of different things, being a black man in corporate America. And I think that's something that we really, as women, black, white, green, or purple, whatever, we really have to encourage our husbands. We really do. That's another big one, is being
Yeah.
encouraging and being his number one cheerleader, and letting him know, honey, you could do whatever you want to do. I'm behind you 100%. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely encouragement. Yeah.
That is awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Monica. You have
You're
been
welcome, honey.
fantastic, dropping
Thank
gems
you.
left and right. But yes, thank you so much. And thank you for just being transparent and sharing your health journey. We appreciate that. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God for his presence in your life and your
Oh
will
yes, thank you.
follow the Lord and receive Him no matter what life brings. Like that for me is very encouraging to hear from you, because oftentimes, when we go through things, some of us may turn our backs on God or be angry with God.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I love God so much because He accepts that too, and He's okay with that too.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
he wants
Mm-hmm.
us to fuss and yell and whatever, long as we stay connected with him, and that gives him
Right.
an opportunity to speak to whatever emotion we're feeling at that time and help
Mm-hmm.
us work through that. So I appreciate that, and that's one of the things I wish I could have had time to ask you about, your foundation and your faith
Mm-hmm.
in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get to that because we'll have another opportunity to get together.
Okay.
We
Okay.
might even bring Mr. Mike Wilson next time.
Woo, Lord. Yeah, we'll see. Now, well, he's a talker, so
Okay. Yeah. Well, we both got them, so we'll manage it.
that's
We'll
true.
manage it.
Yes.
But thank you again for joining us for another
You're
episode of
welcome.
Wife for Life. Thank you guys for listening and watching. I'm super excited that we get to bring wonderful women with wonderful journeys that are phenomenal, like the Monica Wilson. And I just
Thank
again want to
you.
thank you all for being here and for joining us. And if you enjoyed it, please, please, please share, invite, follow, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that keep us going. All right. Have a good one and God bless.